morning everyone, welcome to Transform Pod. I am one of the co-hosts of Transform Pod, Caitlin. Welcome. Please do check out our website, which has everything that you need to handle an anxious attachment, negative thoughts, how to deal with a panic attack. There is a lot of workbooks on there as well as a lot of free resources, so please do check that out. And also please subscribe to our podcast because this allows us to keep bringing you this amazing content. Today I want to discuss all things accepting yourself. Now, this is something that the majority of people suffer with, where you struggle to accept yourself, you struggle to accept who you are. This can either be through relationships, so you may have had a relationship in the past where they've not accepted you for who you are, or you've tried to adjust yourself to be someone lovable by them, which means that you don't accept yourself. Or can be through family relationships where growing up you've had to be a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, be quiet and only speak when spoken to, which makes you not want to accept your authentic self because you feel like your authentic self's not good enough. It can also be through general adulthood. So you may be in a job or you may have a friendship circle where you feel like you've had to adapt yourself. You can't be who you are because it's just not accepted. Now this puts the drive and force in place for one to have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, for you to not think that you're worthy and not think that you're good enough because you think, well, if I was good enough, I would have been accepted in the first place. So clearly I need to act like somebody else, be somebody else to be able to be accepted. Now, one key example of this is think of makeup with girls. So girls have their authentic self, and most girls can go out with no makeup on, they can go out with makeup on. But there is a lot of girls who won't step out the door without makeup on their face. Now this is because that makeup is almost like a confidence barrier. It's something that makes you somebody different. It's like an armour that you need on to make sure that you feel good enough for that day. You know, if you've got makeup on and you're walking into the shop, you feel pretty, you feel like people are looking at you and thinking, oh, you know, she's pretty. But if you walked in the shop with no makeup on, you might be a bit quiet and reserved, and you might feel a little bit shy, and you might not want to look at anybody because you feel like you're not good enough without makeup on. Now that is a prime example. I'm not saying every girl is like that, but there are some girls like that. And the reason that I know this is because I used to be one of those girls who, you know, would need to wear makeup to actually feel good enough within themselves. So it's not a bad thing. It's not, you know, you're a bad person, you must have really low self-esteem because you've got to wear makeup to go out the house. It's just part of that barrier and identity that you've put up to be able to protect yourself, to be able to feel good enough about yourself. But what I want to talk about today is how we learn self-acceptance. So how we can build our self-confidence to fully accept 8 ways that you can practice self-acceptance. The more you practice, the more you will implement this into your life. So the first one is self-forgiveness. Now this one is probably the one people struggle with the most because we've all done stuff in our past or in our present that we're not proud of, that, you know, we maybe wouldn't have done if circumstances were different. And it's hard to accept that part of ourselves because we almost feel like that is who we are. What we need to remember is people change, things change, situations and environments change. So the more that we get older, the more our morals and values adapt and change, and we recognise that what we done maybe wasn't right, but it's a part of our self-growth. It's a part of why we are who we are today. So if you have hurt people in the past, or, you know, if you've acted in ways that you're not proud of, if you've done something that you don't even want to think about because it makes you feel horrific, you need to practice self-forgiveness. It can feel hard, it can feel almost impossible to forgive yourself because you want to try and avoid thinking about the situation. But by forgiving yourself, you need to remember that you're not condoning that behaviour, you're not excusing that behaviour. You're recognising that you are human. You're taking responsibility for the behaviour or for the action that you've done. You are recognising that almost everyone in their life does something that they are not proud of, and if you don't do things that you're not proud of, you don't learn, you never learn. You have to be able to do the hard things, the bad things, to move forward in order to realise what the good things are. So I think it's very, very important to recognise that, you know, you're allowed to make mistakes and you're allowed to forgive yourself for them and you're allowed to move on from them, to be able to accept your full authentic self. Next tip is practicing self-compassion. So self-compassion is something that involves giving yourself compassion or giving yourself love and giving yourself acceptance during difficult times or times where you don't feel quite good enough. You might find ways to practice self-compassion, which each way is different for everybody. So a lot of people like to think of how they'd talk to a friend if they were in that situation, and they'd like to, you know, write it down so they can read it back over, or they want to put it as a note in their phone so that they can go back to it over and over again and make sure that they're constantly talking to themselves like they are talking to a friend, which is giving them self-compassion. You might want to sit in, deep dive into your situation and put it into perspective. So you may want to jumble everything together of what's going on in your life, and you may want to put things into perspective. You know, the good things that you've done, the things that you've pushed through when you didn't think that you could, which gives you a better understanding and gives yourself more self-compassion. You might also engage in self-care. So some people do meditation, meditation. Some people will do exercise or healthy eating. Some people will take themselves for a spa trip once a month, and some people may just do things around the house that is self-care to them. So that can be things like cleaning, it can be things like, you know, making sure there's a full food shop or organising in the house. Self-care is very different for everybody, so no one has the same perspective of self-care. You know, what works for one person isn't going to work for the other person. My view on self-care is I enjoy having a schedule. I enjoy having an hour bath where I can just sit and, you know, watch something on Netflix or listen to a podcast, and I just get to sit for an hour. It's my sanctuary. It's what I like doing. Or I enjoy cleaning and organising the house. So when I've got a free few hours, all I want to do is clean the house to make sure that it's my environment that I'm in is nice and comfortable. Now that is self-care to me, because that means that I don't have the stress of the house needing cleaned every single day, so it just makes me feel better. Try these self-compassion tips, see which one is best for you, or get a notepad and pen, write down what self-care is to you, write down what activities you would like to do to practice self-compassion in your life. Self-compassion is one of the key components to self-acceptance. It is the bread and butter, it is the basis of it, because you have to be compassionate to yourself to accept your full self. For the third tip, there is leaning into mindfulness. Now, a lot of people think when they hear the word mindfulness, deep breathing, meditation. Now, I know that's not possible for everybody. It's not possible for me. I can't do deep breathing. I can't do meditation. I think some people just aren't able to focus that well, and I am one of those people. I can't focus when it comes to doing medication. So the one thing that I like to do to lean into mindfulness is creating a purpose for each day. So I'll have one part of a notebook where I practice gratitude. So I write 3 things down that I'm grateful for every single day. Every morning when I wake up, I go to my notepad and I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. It could be anything. It could be you're grateful for your family, you're grateful for having a car, you're grateful that you're able to eat food a day and that, you know, you're able to get up and go to work. The next part that I do is I find a purpose for that day. So my purpose for today might be to do a podcast, but my purpose for tomorrow might be to have a self-care day, a retail therapy day. So each day I'm finding something where the key focus of that day is that particular activity. This could be work. It could be, you know, if you work a Monday to Friday job, your Monday to Friday, your purpose will be work, but your purpose at work may be different every single day. So, you know, if you work in a school, it might be that on one of the days you're going to focus on helping a particular child with their academic work because you know that they're struggling, your next purpose of the day may be that you want to create a PowerPoint on self-compassion. You want to teach the kids about self-compassion. So even though you might work Monday to Friday, you can still have a different purpose for every single day. This is a great way to practice mindfulness without having to do all of the breath work and all of the meditation and the grounding techniques. If you're able to do that, great, absolutely fantastic. There's nothing better than being able to practice mindfulness in its unique form. But if you're not able to do that like me, try a few different things just to make sure that each day you've got a goal and you're writing down what you're grateful for. Next tip is to make sure that you give yourself credit for your abilities. This is sometimes quite a hard one because not everyone's able to see the good within themselves. They're not able to see how well they do. They're not able to recognise how much they actually bring to society. So it can be the little things. Maybe you're a really good cook and you've, made a really nice meal today. Give yourself credit for it. Give yourself a pat on the back. Say to yourself, you know what it is? I've made a killer pie. I'm sorry, but that is really good and I'm really, really proud of myself for it. Let yourself feel those happy emotions and those emotions where you're like, do you know what it is? No one can make a pie like that. Because you need that for you. It's building your self-compassion. It's building your self-confidence because you're recognising that you are good at things. You might be someone where all your friends turn to when they're having a down day. And you know this because every time your friend has a down day, they're ringing you asking for advice. Recognise that actually I must be pretty good at giving advice, or I must be a really good listener for my friend to constantly come to me when they need advice. Take those little wins. It's the little wins that add up to make the big wins. So always remember, whenever you recognise that you're doing something good with your abilities, praise yourself for it. And then you need to start ignoring that inner critic. So this is the next tip. Probably the hardest thing out of the full 8 tips that needs to be done is ignoring your inner critic. We all have one. All of us have an inner critic. We all do things where we might think, oh my God, why did you say that? Why did you do that? Why did you walk that way? Why, why have you created something like this? It's your own self. It's your own criticism, really. That's in a nutshell, that's what it is. You can stop your inner critic, you can stop your negative thoughts, and this comes from a lot of practice. It's not something you can do overnight, but it does come from a lot of practice where your negative thoughts will automatically pop up because a lot of the times they are just automatic. But you can step back and you can say, actually, I don't need to listen to that negative thought because there's also a different perspective of it. And that's where you're at a point where you can start to put your inner critic to bed because you're able to step back from the negative thoughts that's happening. Again, it's not something that will happen overnight. It's not something you can just delve into and say, I'm going to start ignoring my negative thoughts today. But you can start to put little things into practice to ignore those negative thoughts. So when they do come on, you can think, do you know what, I'm not listening to you today because I know that I'm capable of doing this, or I know that I am a good friend and they wouldn't have thought anything about that. So it's just about putting the little things into practice and about recognising that everyone has an inner critic. The inner critic's always going to be there because it's just one of those things that's, unfortunate that us humans have been blessed with. But you can control it. You don't let your inner head. You are who you surround yourself with. That couldn't be more true. Your friendship group and your family circle are so important to your life that your personality almost develops around them because they are part of your being. They're part of your personality. They're part of who shapes you and who allows you to make new friends and allows you to have confidence and allows you to have support. They are so important for every part of your life. So you need to recognise and you need to acknowledge who is around you, who you've got in your inner circle. Can you laugh with them? Do they boost your confidence? Do they tell you that you look pretty? Do they help you when you're at your lowest moment? Can you have funny stories with them? Can you relate to them? These are the people who you need to surround yourself with, and you need to ask yourself those questions so that you know you're surrounding yourself with the right people. You know that you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people when you feel anxious around them, or when they bring you down, or when they don't want to see you do well. They'll, maybe try and push you off track when you're trying to better yourself. They may say, you're never going to be able to do that, which is the type of people that you don't want around you, because, as I've said before, your inner circle is so important to who you are as a person. Your inner circle will help you to build, they will help you to develop self-compassion, they will help you to be your best possible self, but also they will help you to accept yourself, which is equally as important. And then you need to realise that, your hopes and dreams may not be met yet. You may not have the best career yet. You may not have a romantic relationship yet. You may not be married with kids when all of the rest of your friends are settled down and married with kids. You may not have a really good savings fund, although everyone around you is saving and buying houses. It's very easy to feel disappointed within yourself. It's very easy to feel like low and to feel unworthy when you don't have what everyone around you has. But what you need to recognise is that you're constantly striving for a vision within life. You're constantly, there's always the next thing. It's, I've got to this point of my career, what next am I going to do? How can I better myself? How can I strive for more? How can I continue to be a helping hand in the world? How can I make a difference to the people around me? Or how can I save for a house and save for a car? And, what can I do to get to that point? A romantic relationship isn't as simple as, what can I do to find a romantic relationship? Because ideally you want, someone to gravitate towards you and for you to find that connection within yourselves, which you will. The more that you're building self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-worth, the more that you'll have someone who has all of those things and can bring all of those things to your life and can help build you up, because what you give out in the world you get back. So you need to realise that as much as you can be disappointed, it's a natural emotion. You can feel a little bit of, low mood from it. You can feel a little bit of disappointment. That's absolutely fine, but don't dwell on it, because you're always striving for the next thing. You're always striving for you to become the best of your abilities, which is what keeps you going in that moment. And then lastly, you need to realise that acceptance of everything about yourself, true authentic acceptance, is not settling. Just because you're accepting your flaws, or you're accepting your failures, or you're accepting that, you may not be as intelligent as the next person, or you may not have, the nicest car, you may not have a house like what your friends have got. It does not mean that you're settling for not having that. What it means is that you're recognising your limitations, you're recognising that these are the things that you don't have but that you might want, and then you're continuing to build that ability to be able to get those things. You're continuing to build yourself up, and you're continuing to recognise that it doesn't matter if I don't have those things. I can still accept myself for who I am. I can still have true, authentic self-acceptance, regardless of having all of the materialistic things, or having the romantic relationship, or having a savings account with a nice house. You still accept yourself for who you are on the inside. Now, this goes a very, very, very long way for your mental well-being, and it also helps you with your self-confidence, your self-worth, and your self-compassion. So that is very, very important to remember. So that is the 8 steps, or tips, should I say, for having true, authentic self-acceptance. Now, in no way, shape or form are they easy. They're not something that you can just wake up one day and do. It's going to take a lot of practice. It's going to take a lot of setbacks and then trying again, and then it's going to take a lot of getting to know yourself, being comfortable with the uncomfortable, and recognising that you're allowed to have emotions, and you're allowed to feel a certain way about things, and you're allowed to not feel the most confident, but not dwelling on that and continuing to strive for more at the best of your abilities. That is the most important part. So if you have had a hard time with self-acceptance, or you don't feel like you accept your true authentic self, gain perspective on everything. Start a journal, start writing things down, gain perspective on everything that you don't feel is right in your life, or that you don't feel like you accept in your life, and then start working your way that way. I hope this episode has been helpful. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you do, please give us a subscribe on podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify, we are on TikTok as Transformed Life Coaching. Please have a little look at our content and let us know if there's anything else that you want us to talk about. And most importantly, please give us a rating for our podcasts, as this will help us to develop more and to reach out to more people. Thank you.